So when somebody's looking to purchase into a franchise, what are some of the important, because I've heard some horror stories with certain franchise brands where they just, they take that franchise fee, upfront fee, and they just make a business out of collecting those fees. And then, like you said, they're maybe not so focused on helping their franchisees be successful, but they've essentially just made a business model, as unethical it is just taking people's money and not giving them any support. So how do you differentiate between franchise options out there that are like that versus some of the ones with proven track records like Subway, who's always in the list of top 10 franchisees? What would you have to say about that?
There's so there's a lot of different ways you can kind of go about doing your due diligence on a franchise. The first thing in doing your due diligence, it's about a 4 to 8 week process of a couple hours a week, really kind of digging in and taking it kind of one step at a time. Typically, to start to get information, you have to reach out, start a dialogue with a representative, or you could work with somebody like myself who can kind of shortcut that and help you kind of figure out some good quality franchise companies and get you in touch with somebody right away. And then the due diligence is really learning about the business model, learning about verbally what the training and support and everything that they provide and what the role of the owner actually is in the business. And the most important thing operationally, I think, to validate is, how does that franchise acquire customers and how good are they at it? Like the best franchise systems in any given industry, they systematically and scientifically understand how to acquire customers. So there's a bunch of operational stuff you validate. You learn about the training and support through just kind of this introductory phase of the due diligence. You get the franchise disclosure document, and there are certain sections in that franchise disclosure document that will help you understand what the track record of the franchise is. So basically, like item 20, they have to disclose how many outlets they have opened, how many outlets they have signed but not opened, and how many they've ever closed. So you can kind of start to get a little bit of some data on the track record. And then that's like the first phase of the due diligence, where you conceptually understand everything. And then you go into validation, where you actually talk to franchise owners in the system. So most franchise companies will kind of help facilitate that. All of the contact information for all of the franchisees is also in that franchise disclosure document. And that's where you start to that's really where, you put a lot of time in and having 45-minute to an hour-long conversations to talk to the owners and get pick their brain about how it's been and make sure you identify with them, or maybe you figure out you don't identify with them, they have different goals or it's not panning out or whatever. But you keep calling until you feel comfortable one way or the other on that. And then typically, like, between the introductory kind of conceptual understanding of it and then the validation by talking to franchise owners, you'll know if it's the right fit. Obviously, you want to talk to a funding company to kind of help figure out the funding and all that stuff. And I can talk more about that. But you might go face to face to visit the franchise company as a last step, just to meet the people who you'll be working with and verify everything you've learned. But there really shouldn't be a ton more that you'll learn at that last face to face meeting. So
yeah, when most people think of franchises, well, at least me, I initially think Popeyes, McDonald's, Subway. There's a huge other array of options out there, right? Like, what are some of the other industries that you see franchises in?
Oh man, so you've got the food category, which is roughly between food and hotels, kind of half of franchising. So call it 1,500 concepts, and then you got everything else. And so there's boutique fitness is one of the faster growing areas in franchising right now. Orange Theory kind of blazed that trail. That's kind of like the newer, field of franchises. Beauty is a very successfully franchised area, from value hair care up to manis and pedis and stuff like that. You've got health and wellness with massages, and then you kind of get into like the more kind of mobile businesses that don't have a brick and mortar location that customers come to. So like Advanta Clean was a disaster restoration. We're going out to the customers' homes or buildings. a lot of residential and commercial kind of maintenance related services are very, very franchised and be very good businesses, from disaster restoration to window cleaning, believe it or not. Just a lot of stuff that people don't want to do themselves and they're willing to pay, somebody else a little bit of premium for. In the healthcare space, there's senior care has been kind of one of the, for the past 15 years has been that newer kind of segment of that space that's really emerged and is very solidified and kind of crowded right now. But there's some other ones in that, but those are that's a little bit of there's like 80 different categories basically.
Yeah. So if anybody hasn't looked into it, there's options. You don't just have to buy a McDonald's franchise or start a Subway or something like that. There's a ton of options out there. And what is like the average upfront cost to get into, say, your average franchise? And I've heard that there's net worth requirements. What is that all about, and what does that look like?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the franchise. So